So if I go here for the database auditing model, the one that we have explained earlier. Now, if I want to go here for the environment, you notice that we have either the people, objectives, and the procedures, right? Also, we have something called audited entities. In our case, at least for now, we will focus on the database side. We'll focus on database side in general, which is this part, So for today's topic, I want to explain how we can create users, okay, and how we can give these users permissions to access to our database components and so on, okay. So let's just go here for authorization and authentication, okay, concepts. Basically, the slide title is authorization control. Now, the objectives here will be, first of all, is to define what do you mean by authorization and authentication. I'm trying my best. Okay. Broad issues in database security and understanding of authorization metrics. Now, if I want to ask, what's the difference between authorization and authentication? If I want to ask, what's the difference between authorization and authentication?
Authorization is people who are allowed to use certain data or something like that.
Okay.
And authentication is yeah, confirmation of like who's I don't know. Just
Okay.
authentication is like the real people who are authenticated by the system to use the database. If we are
Okay.
talking about the database, and
Okay.
authorization or those who are authorized to modify, update, delete, or anything inside the database.
Okay. So this is authorization.
Yeah.
Authentication. Okay.
Authentication
Thanks.
would be confirm. Okay, just to
Okay.
move on.
Thanks. Anyone else? What is authorization? Okay. Basically, authorization is your privilege in the system, to make it simple. It means what you can do in the system. What you can do in the system. Okay. Authentication is what? What is authentication? What is authentication? Anyone? What is authentication?
To show someone is someone really their identity, to prove their identity.
To approve their identity. So what is authentication? Till now you're giving me definitions which is nearby but not exactly the same.
The role of the user.
The role of the user is authorization. I'm talking about authentication. The first keyword.
To make sure it's the right person who access.
So to make sure it is the right person, how we do that?
Like using password or username.
Like using passwords and so on, right? So by definition, okay, to understand it simply, authorization is the permission. That means what I can do in the system. For example, in web space, okay, in Moodle, for me as a lecturer, for my own modules, I can do what? I can upload the slides, exam papers, maybe let's say classes, let's say reports and so on. Okay, this is what? This is my authorization. That means this is my privilege. This is what I can do in the system. Now, how the system will ensure that I am the person who claim to be, I must use something called authentication. And authentication basically it will be what? It will be the mechanism that determines whether the user is who he or she claims to be. Okay? And the basic form of authentication that we have in systems is basically having username and password. Now, let me give you an example. Earlier, when at the beginning, let's say, of emails, at that time there was no Google. We have either let's say Hotmail, or we have the Alta Vista as search engine, AOL, and so on. We have other like emailing systems. This is like before maybe 20 years, more than that. Because I remember the first time I created the first email, it was in 1999. So at that time, Google was not there, Yahoo was there, yes, and so on. So at that time, simply the email will have what? It will have the username and password as what? As an authentication concept, as what? An authentication concept. So okay, we have what? Username and password. Then later, they update the mechanism for authentication. So they said, okay, you will have username and password, but also we want from you to, or we want to give you some questions, and you'll go to provide some answers. Now they are using this till now. So you'll have like some questions, and you'll have like common answers. Okay, so if something goes wrong in your email, or maybe let's say a person hacking it and so on, so when you do recovery, they will ask you the question, then you need to provide what? The correct answer. So this is what? This is, we are trying here to do what? To determine if you are really the persons who are claiming to be. Okay, nowadays with the advancement with, let's say, with mobile computing and so on, the email is connected to your what? To your mobile number. So if something goes wrong, okay, something goes wrong, for the recovery process, they will say what? They will say, okay, you need to provide your mobile number, because mobile number it is very hard to be hacked by hackers. It is very hard to simulate that number in general. Okay, so therefore, notice here authentication can be on different levels. Now, for today, I will focus on what? On creating usernames and passwords, because till now, when we access to the SQL Server, we access it as administrators. That means simply I can do anything in the whole database, or the whole databases that I have. And the real case scenarios, we are not allowed to do that, okay? Because I must ensure that each user will have his own permissions or privileges. Like for example, I want to go to the model example once again. I will say here that also the students, they have what is specific access or limited access to web space. So for example, if you want to access to database security, basically you will be able only to download materials. No more than that, okay? So this is basically what is authorization and authentication. Now, if I have database management system, so DBA or database administrator, okay, he will go to apply the authorization rules, okay, by creating later something called logins or users. Then the users will go to use authentication access requested. That means the DBA will go to create usually the username and password, okay. Then after that, the users will go to use these credentials to access the database management system in general. Okay, clear till now? Any question? Okay, now you notice that I'll move in the theory part fast a little bit, because my concentration will be on the practical side. In the practical side, on how to create, the logins, users, permissions, and so on. Now, when I go for database security in general, there are three very broad, let's say, issues in database security. The first one is legal and ethical consideration. Who has the right to read what information? Now, if you check with, with this era where we have all these social media, platforms and so on, and the advancements of the internet in general, this became one of the most important questions to be asked. Who has the right to read what information? For example, all of you most likely knows before a few years ago, when Edward Snowden, okay, who was working in NSA, United States, just simply revealed that United States is spying on all citizens. Okay, even the American citizens. They check all their emails, their Facebook accounts, everything. Okay, and now this goes to them, and this makes the debate once again at that time, even till now, who has the right to read what information? And this is very important thing, and this is why in general, security nowadays is one of the measures which became very important for all organizations. And I would say like demand earlier for like maybe like 10 years and so on, that for security was not really there as today. No, today is it is there. In reality, referring to statistics, the more that we are advanced in software or IT, let's say, we are required more security people. Referring to statistics, the number of security professionals nowadays are less than what is required, and therefore the demand for security persons remains high. Okay? In general. So this is the first question. They need to check who has the right to read what information. It is the government, it is the organization, which user supposed to do that, and so on. Okay. The second question will be policy issues. Who should enforce security? Government, corporations, or department? Okay. For example, now in some countries, what they will do from government, let's say from security point of view, the government will go to enforce the security measures. Like for example, now if you are checking with China, for example, there are many enforcements for security done by the government, not corporations or departments. Okay, why? Because they should, or at least they claim that, want to ensure that the country is safe. So this is why we're adding all these restrictions. Even the rich level, they want maybe in the future, nearby future, they will go to implement a system for rating. That means each one of the Chinese people will be what, and it's China basically, will be what having rating. Like okay, his rating like is 5 out of 10, depending on his actions and so on. So if you go to any government, let's say to apply for some documents and so on, they will check his rating. So the government are really working on this thing. This is very strict for sure, but it is there. Sometimes governments are enforcing securities. The corporations itself. So also like organizations say, okay, which information is supposed to be secured, not revealed to others. And here we have also debates between governments and corporations, because for example, governments want, for example, especially if you are talking about something like financial statements and so on, they want to ensure that some of the informations are not hidden from them. So corporate says, no, I want to hide this information. So there is debate on this side. Also, it is on the level of department or not. So who should enforce security is one of the main issues or more concern nowadays. And there is a lot of debates on this side. System level issues. Where should security be enforced in the system and how? Now you'll notice that when we discussed about the audit process earlier, we said one of the problems for audit in general is that it can be so huge. Because if I said, okay, I want to do auditing for everything, you'll have like 2 systems plus the system that you have, or at least for the documentation, let's say size and so on. So usually, where should security be enforced is not an easy question. It's not an easy question in general, because if I want to enforce really security to the highest level, that means this will have a lot of cost, and also it will utilize a lot of resources. And the question will be always, are these security measures are important or not? Okay, so that depends. So this is basically, in general, some of the issues in database security. Now, my concern or our concern here is in the next slide, which is from database security point of view, I will focus on access control, which means I'm not here in this topic basically talking about all the aspects of data, at least in this part here, I'm not talking about all the aspects of, let's say, database security. That means the environment that we have. So therefore, who should be allowed to access to which databases, and typically enforce using system level accounts with password. This is basically what I'll go to do for today. Okay. Now, attention please for this slide. Now, authorization rules. When we discuss about authorization in general, I will have three concepts that I need to be aware of. I will have three concepts that I need to be aware of. The first one, users. And basically it will be the individuals who perform some activity on database. Okay, so the first concept is what? Users, the persons who want access to my database. The second concept is objects. Objects here we discuss, or at least on our example that I'll go to provide, I will go to discuss about either databases or tables inside these databases or reviews. Okay, so database units that require authorization in order to be manipulated. For example, tables, columns, and rows. The third concept would be privilege. That means how the user can access to this project, to which level, what he can do. So privileges can be an action that might be performed on an object by user. Example, read information, update, insert, and delete. Okay. To understand this concept here, let's go to SQL Server. Let's go to SQL Server representation for security model, for the security model. Now let's assume here we have a server. Server here, I mean something like Windows server, for example, say 2019, for example. Okay, that means the operating system, Then we have the database management system like SQL Server. Then inside SQL Server, we have different set of what? Of databases. Now we know that one of these databases is what? The Dream Home database. Dream Home database. Okay. Now attention please for the point that I want to highlight right now. SQL Server, when it works with creating usernames and passwords, it will work on two levels. It will work on two levels. The first one is called login. That means you will see later, I will not go to create a user directly. No, I will go to create something called login. Okay, then after that, I will go to create a user under the specific database management system. Okay, so first of all, I will go to create login in general. Then I will go to create users under each database management system that I'm using, or under each database that we are using. So therefore, let's go here to check this diagram. Notice here first, if I have a user called Alex, okay, now the DBA usually is the person who will go to create these credentials, as we'll go to do right now. Okay, so the Alex will allow to log in, okay, to the SQL Server. Then after he is logged in, I will check if he's having a user under a specific database. So we'll see later, if I just simply log in, I can't do anything really, okay? But what I need to do, I need to have a user under the specific database, a user under the specific database. So for example, notice here I have said, okay, we have login, then the login will be back to a user called what? Alex123, because it is what? Because it is the user for that database. Now, notice here, I will go to give permissions, which is a privilege. So I'm saying here the following, I'm saying that Alex123 can, or this is the user, okay, the privilege, he can select information only, he can update, delete, or insert data. And this is done on what? On the staff table. Clear? So the three concepts, which is users. So in our case, it will be Alex as the user. Then we have objects. So it will be the table as an object. Then we will have a privilege, which is what? The permission, which is the permission. Clear? Any question till now? Okay, now after and now this is why when I go for the practical part, when I go for the codes, the things will be more clear. This is why usually I don't spend too much time in theory part. Just I'm highlighting, okay, these are the concepts. Then when I go for the implementation, no, things will become more clear. Okay, because there is a lot of details as you'll go to see later. Okay, now can I make it apply to the whole database? My concern, there is some permissions, yes, because privileges basically can be on the server level, database level, table level. Even I can have permissions to store the procedures, for example. You know, earlier we have covered what? Store procedures. Later you'll see that I can also give permissions to something called execute for the store procedures. So I will go to, highlight these points. So most likely I will answer this question once again later while I'm moving in the lecture. But for now, just I'm moving one by one, just to give you the basic concepts. Okay. Now, we have something called authorization table or authorization metrics. Now, in this slide here, we have the authorization metrics as full authorization metrics, which means I will have the user, okay? Then what is the object that he is, trying to access? Then what is the privilege that he have? So for example, I will say the person or the user ID, for example, okay? He want to access an employee table. What he want to do? He want to read. That means select information, okay? The same user want to access or is allowed to access to the employee table. He's supposed to insert. He is allowed to access here. He's supposed to modify and so on. Okay. Also, he can give something called the grant. I'll get later discuss about what do you mean by the grant option. Okay. Then I'll say, okay, for example, Bill here is only working on employee and he only can read. Notice here, Bill is not able to do anything except reading the information from the table. That's all. That's all. Okay. Clear? Any questions now? Okay. Now, when I go for authorization table or matrix, okay, from user view. Now, usually to review will not use it heavily in SQL Server. We will go to use other two reviews. The first one, it will be the user view. The second one will be object view. So what do you mean by that? What's the difference? For the user view, I will go to list all, or I will go to show all the objects. Okay. Then I will go to show the privileges. And then I will go here to say either this person, which is not, can read on employee tables or not. Okay. So once again, the user view says, okay, we have here as a user, I can see all the objects and the permissions, and then I will decide what you can do here. That means either this is correct or not correct. For example, I will say here, the user Smith can read information from employees table. Okay. The user Smith cannot insert information in the employees table. He is not allowed to do that. He is not allowed to do that, and so on, and so on. Next, we have what we call it as object view. In the object view, I will go to show the object, and under that object, I'll go to show all the users who can access to that table, okay, or that database, and what are the permissions that they have, and what are the permissions that they have. Okay, on SQL Server, I will depend heavily on these two concepts of those two views, which is the object view and user view. Okay, so later we'll go to give permissions to different users. We'll go to say that each time I give the permission, I'll go to check to ensure that it was updated and so on. It was updated and so on. Okay. Here we have the grant and revoke statements. This is basically what I will go to cover when I begin with the discussion of what of the SQL Server So I'll go to use the grant and revoke statements or keywords to either give the permission or to take back the permission from the user. So clear? Any question till now before we proceed to SQL Server? Okay, now let's go to SQL Server. Now, first of all, when I want to log into my SQL Server, okay, we discussed about this earlier, but just I want to visit the authentication once again. We said earlier the server type depends on what you have installed, but in our case, I will go to database engine, sorry. And then we have the server name. So here I will go to check what are the servers if I have on my system, okay. So basically here I have what? I have the server name, Now for authentication, notice here, if I click on the scroll down menu, I will have different types of authentication. Different types of authentication mechanisms. Or tools, at least in SQL Server. The first one is Windows authentication. Second one that I will go to use is the SQL Server authentication. Now notice here, if I just simply check for Windows authentication, the username and password, it is them already. Okay, then means what? Then means that when you access to the SQL Server, the SQL Server management system will go to inherit all the credentials from the operating system. That means it says since you are able to access to the Windows operating system, by default you can access to SQL Server. Okay, and this is why here notice we don't want to provide any password. Now when I go for SQL Server authentication, notice here I provide login and password. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Okay. So when I go for Windows authentication, let's go for connect. When I deal with permissions, I need to ensure that I am working on which level. So for example, you will notice here, when I go for security, we have a folder for security under each database. If I open this, like the email database, or if I go for KL Marina, notice here we have what? We have plenty of what? We have security folder, as you can see here. This is on the database level. But also, I will have security folder on the server level. This security folder will have logins, okay, and under logins, I can find what the existing logins, which is created by SQL Server. What next that I'll go to do? I'll go to create these logins by myself. So let me just check the code here. Just Okay, so let's go here for the SQL codes and let's see how this works. Let's see how this works. First of all, if I want to create a login, I can use either the built-in store procedure, which is sp underscore add login, or you can use the command create login. So both ways will work. Both ways will work. But for me here, I'll go to use the store procedure because it will make the things easier to to implement the data. Now, notice the first store procedure, the first built-in store procedure, is used to create a login. Is used to create a login. So what I want to do here, I want to create first a login, which is called Alex, and see what he can do in our system, what he can do in our system. So therefore, I will go here to say execute sp underscore add login at login name equal Alex and password is equal to 1. Okay, so highlight, execute. So after we set that command successfully, I will go here for security, then I'll go for logins, refresh, no, notice we have a lot. We have Alex, we have Alex. Now if I go here to check the properties of this Alex, okay, notice here we have something called server rules. So now he is assigned to what? He is assigned to public. Then also there is something called securables. Securables will be basically the things that this login will be able to access. Will be able to access. Like notice, for example, this Alex, he can do what? He can connect to SQL Server. If I remove this one, most likely I save it. Later I will face some problems. Later I'll face some issues and problems. Okay, the second view will be, or later, okay, for now just I will go for login. Now, what will happen if I said, okay, please connect service engine, go for SQL Server authentication. So I will say we have Alex and 1. Now, I want to highlight one point here. If you are using this for the first time, okay, if you are using this for the first time, most likely you will get an error when you try to log in. Most likely, we'll get an error when you try to log in. Okay, let me just explain this concept right now. Then later I will show you what the error message.
I get the error message, sir.
You get the error message, right?
Yes.
Okay, to solve the error message, you need to do the following. You will log in as administrator. Okay, you log in as administrator. Then you will go here to the server, right click, then you will go for the properties. Okay, under properties, there is something called security. In this case, in your device, this one will be selected, which is Windows Authentication Mode. Now, when you do the installation for SQL Server, by default, the Windows Authentication Mode is selected. And therefore, if you try to create users, as what we are trying to do right now, most likely, if it is the first time, you will get an error. You will get an error, okay? So this one will be SQL Server and Windows Authentication Mode. So you need to do what? You need to go to check this one. Then you need to go to say, okay. Now, be aware, till now, even though I changed the option, but till now, this option is not valid. That means if you try now to log in once again, using the credentials Alex and 1 to your database, it will not work. Okay, it will give you the error once again. Why? Because it is now, till now, it is not updated in the system. Now, to update that, what you can do simply, I can go here, right click, then I can go for restart. Here, restart means restart the whole server. That means restart the service. Clear? Any questions now? Okay.
Sir, question here.
Yes.
For the login and password, is there any case sensitive?
Yes, for sure. Usually, if you want to use in reality, and let me show you here. If I go for the logins once again, let's assume I want to go for security once again. Okay, then I'll go for Alex properties. Now, usually here I will have what? I will have these rules. Okay, that means we have something called the policy. Let's say password policy rules. For example, I can, let's say, enforce password policy and enforce password, let's say, expiration and so on. When I say enforce password policy, this means what? This means you need to provide a password with, let's say, characters like, okay, like small characters, capital characters, special characters, and so on. Okay, so usually in the password, yes, it's supposed to be what? Case sensitive. It's supposed to be case sensitive, not like SQL language in general. Okay, now any question till now? Okay, now let's here I log in as what? I log in as Alex. Notice here in the diagram, okay, I log into the system, to the server. Now the question will be, can I access Dream Home database as Alex?
No.
Yes or no? No, right?
Yes.
We can't access it. Why? Because I don't have the permission. Or here, it is not I don't have the permission, I don't have the user, okay, under this database. So notice what will happen here. If I try to access to Dream Home database, I'll get an error. Say, sorry, you are not allowed to access to our database, which is called Dream Home. Why? Because you don't have the permission till that. Or you don't have the permission till now. Even if I try to access any other module here or another database, simply I will get the same error. I will get the same error. Clear? Any question till now? Okay. Now attention, please, what I want to do. Notice here, this is another important point. When I execute any code, I need to know who is the user who is executing this code. Who is executing this code right now? It is Abdullah. I am the administrator, so I can access or I can execute any code that I want. But if I go for Alex, okay, and let's assume I want to go for Dream Home, then I want to go for new query. Notice here we have, okay, 1 minute. Notice here it will say it is master, then Alex, right? Now choose Dream Home database, I will get the same error. Okay. Because I can't access to that system. So let me do the following to make things more clear. Now, after we create the logins on the server level, you need to go to create a user under the specific database that you want to use. Okay, so in SQL Server we have two levels. First we have the login, okay, then the login will be mapped to a user, okay, under a specific database. Now, one login can be mapped to more than one database or can be mapped to more than one user under different number of databases. So let me use the second command here. And this command basically will do what? It will go to add a user to the login that we have created. So I said here also use execute sp as add user as a built-in stored procedure, okay, to do the same thing, So here I provide Alex as the login name, and the name in DB I use Alex123 just to distinguish between the login name and what the user in my database. So now I am as administrator, so just highlight and execute. So now we have an Alex. called 123 under what? Under Dream Home database. So if I go here under the database, okay, and my server here, when I go for databases, then I'll go for Dream Home database, then I go for security, then users. Notice here, sorry, I apply it on master database. Okay, my mistake, it must be Dream Home. So execute once again. Okay, so here I will have what users under the database, but let me refresh it. So we have Alex 123. We have Alex 123. Okay, clear? So first I create the login, then I create username, okay, and that user will be what? Will be under the specific login. Now notice here, notice I'm working as administrator under Abdullah. So I add the user. Now when I go for Alex and I go for refresh, okay. Now can we access Dream Home? The answer is yes. I can access what? The database. But notice here, if I try to access the tables, can I access to them? Now Alex can access to what? To the database in general. But can I access the tables right now?
No.
The answer simply is no. So what happens here if I try to expand the tables? Notice here I don't see anything, even though I know that we have many tables under the Home database if I want to access it as administrator. Clear? So notice here the administrator says, okay, this file or the PDF, sorry, this is supposed to be accessed. So in this case, I can't access what? To the tables that we have here. So to allow us to access these tables, what we do, we will go to give them permissions. We will go to give the user a set of permissions so you'll be able to access and manipulate the objects in our table, Okay, clear? Any question till now? Any question till now?
Sir, when we added the Alex123 user inside the database, when we
Yes.
connect to the database again, do we connect with Alex123 or just with the Alex, the first one we made?
Okay, usually the name is only the name of the user. When you connect to the server, I will go connect and database engine. Here always I will use what? I will use the login details, not the user details. Okay, the login details, not the user details. To access to the server. And to make this more clear, if I go here, now if I go to security on server level here on my server, okay. When I go for security, notice here when I go for Alex, I will have the general server rules, right? Then we have user mapping. So here we say, okay, this login is mapped to what? Notice here, this login is mapped to a Dream Home, or let's say these are called Alex123, and this database is what? A Dream Home database. Dream Home database.
So basically, Alex123 can access Dream Home database.
Yes, because it is the user which is attached to what? To Alex.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Most welcome. Clear? Any question till now? Now I'll give you a break for like 15 minutes. 15 minutes, okay? Then we'll go to show you how this works in details. So any questions now before we go to the break?
So means that the Alex, the login name must be unique as well. Am I right?
For sure, yes.
Okay.
You can't create two login names having the same name. So it must be unique. That's correct. Clear? Any questions till now? So for now, I'll give you a break for 50 minutes. Then we proceed with what? With the remaining topics. I'll go to show you in details how we do all of this, how we give the permissions to the different users, and what is the user view, what is the object view, and so on, and so on. So that means see you at, let's say, 3, 5. Okay, attention please. So what I want to do right now is the following. What I want to do right now is the following. I want to go to create 4 logins, okay, and also 4 users. Then I want to begin to give permissions to one of the users, for example, maybe like Mary, for example. Then I will go to allow Mary to give these permissions to other users and so on. Okay, and you'll see how this will look or how we can utilize this, let's say, on SQL Server. So therefore, first of all, I will go to just if I can, I will add the password as 1. Okay. So let me just create 4 logins. So highlight, execute, command completed successfully. So now if I want to access to my data, let me just disconnect it from Alex. So just I will say disconnect. Okay. And now when I go for security for logins here, then I'll go for refresh. I will have what? I will have these logins, which is Ali, Mary, Bob, and Sam. Okay. Now I will go to use the stored procedure, the one that I used earlier, to add a user to my login. So here I didn't use the parameter name, right? So I just simply said, okay, this is Ali. So the first one will be basically for the, if I hover here over the stored procedure. So you'll notice that the first one will be what? Will be the login name, and the second one will be the database name. So here I'm adding the same name for the login name and also for the user. It is applicable, there is no issue. Okay. Earlier I use Alex and Alex123 just to distinguish between the login and user, but for now just I'm using the same name for the login and also the user. So I highlight execute. Now make sure here when I execute this one that database or the database system is correctly selected, which is in our case Dream Home. Otherwise, it will go for other database like what I have done earlier. The previous example, when I execute by mistake, it was master database. So the user was created under master database. Okay, so highlight this one here, then go for execute, command completed successfully. So now I will have under Dream Home another 4 users. Okay, and let me just go for security. They are called okay, refresh. They called Ali, Bob, Sam, and Mary plus Alex, the one 1, 2, 3, the one that we have it created earlier. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Okay, now attention please, now attention please. First of all, I want to log in as Ali, okay, because I want to show you the following. First of all, I'll go here to Ali, okay, then I will say we have 1, then I will go for connect. So now I'm connected as Ali, right? And then can I access to my Dream Home database? The answer is yes, right? Can I access to any of the tables? The answer is no. The answer is no. To confirm that, I will go to create a new query. Okay, and here what I will try to do, I will try to select information from what? From staff table, for example, because we know under Dream Home we have what? We have the staff table. So I will say select all from what? From Ali. From Ali, from staff. From staff. Then execute. Notice here the error message clearly says that the select permission was denied on object staff, okay, in our database Dream Home. Why? Because simply Ali till now is not having the select permission on what? On staff table. On staff table. Now what I want to do here is that for me now as administrator, notice here when I execute the codes, I need to check what the SQL sheet name here. Who are the user or who is the user who is executing the codes? Now for me, Abdullah is the administrator. So as administrator, I want to grant select on staff to Ali. Now, to give permissions to others in SQL, okay, a language, I will use the grant keyword. After the grant keyword, I will go to mention what are the permissions or the privileges, okay. Then I need to define to which object, then to whom. Two can be either for one user or more than one user, or it can be for roles. Roles means groups. Like for example, I can have a create, later I'll go to create maybe a group called, let's say, students, for example, and that students will be as what? As a group. Okay, I'll go to highlight this at the end of the lecture or when I reach that code later. Okay, so either it will be the user or what? It will be the group of users, the group of users. So here I will go to highlight, the grant select on staff to Ali, then I will say execute. Command completed successfully. Now if I go to Ali once again here, and now I try to execute this statement, it will work or not? After I give the permissions.
Yes.
It will work or not? It's supposed to work. So let me try. I let execute. Notice here what? I get the information from the staff table. Get the information from the staff table. Okay. But now let me just go here. Refresh. Can I update any record from the staff table?
No.
The answer will be no. Like for example, if I said here, let's select the information. Assume I want to delete SL43. So let's assume that I said, okay, delete, let's say from, then I will say, let's say staff, then I will say where, then let's say staff number is equal to SL43. Now when I try to do that, highlight execute. Notice here the delete permission was denied because you don't have this permission. You have only what? The permission to select the information from the staff table. Clear? Any question till now? Any question till now? Okay.
No, sir.
Now, attention please for what I want to show you right now. We said earlier that when I want to access the permissions, I will have two views. I will have the user view and I will have what? The object view. So let's go first for the user view. To do that, I will go to my Dream Home database, go to security, go to Ali, right? Because I give the permissions to Ali. Then right click, then properties here. Okay, and notice here we have something called securables. Securables for the user means which objects he can access and what is the permission that he have on that object. So notice here, it says the following. It says the schema is DBO. This is Ali, right? This is the user. This is the user view. The object is called staff, right? What is the type? Table, because we'll see later that I can have maybe, let's say, view, or I can have, let's say, stored procedure, and so on, and other objects, and other objects. Now, when I go for the permissions, notice here we have all these predefined, usually, let's say, permissions, but the one which is granted is what? It is select. So notice here, the permission that you have on the staff, that means the Ali permission on staff table is select, okay? And that select command is granted by whom? By DBO, database owner. DBO stands for database owner. Notice here we have what? We have a grant. We have a grant, with a grant, and deny. I'll go to explain what are these two concepts later in the next examples. Okay, so we'll have what? Select, then the option is what? A grant. Clear? Any question till now?
Can it be done manually?
What do you mean?
Like from this page? From
For
this,
sure, for sure.
Uh-huh.
All the things, I will say the major things that we do in SQL can be done manually using the graphical interface. Okay, but sometimes graphical interface will be easier. Sometimes using the script will be easier. Like for example, if I want to create tables with all the constraints and so on, if I have a script, it will be like piece of cake. I can create 100 tables in less than 1 minute because simply I will just execute everything. But if I want to use the graphical interface, no, I'll spend 3 days doing that. Okay, it will be take too much time. So that depends on the case scenario. But in major cases, I will say in major cases, the things that we can do here also can be what applied using the SQL commands, using the SQL commands. Okay, this is the user view. So I show the user which objects he can access and what are the permissions that he have on those objects. Okay, that means once again we are visiting what the concept of authorization rules. Now, the second view will be what? Will be the object view. So what I will go here to do, I will go for tables, then I'll go for the staff table, right? Then I'll go right click, then go for properties. And notice here we have something called permissions. Under permissions, we will have what? We will have the users. Notice here I have Ali, who is the user. And then what this user can do on this table, which is the staff table. So notice here he can do what? He can select the information from the staff table. Okay, can do what? Select the information from the staff table. Clear? Any question till now? So this is what? This is the object view. The other one is what? The user view. Okay, clear? Clear. Now what I want to do here is the following. I want to go to create a new diagram, okay? And I want to track the permissions, okay? Creating a diagram, blank, okay. Now let's assume here we have the first user, which is the admin. And now the admin, before that, okay, let's go here for the text. All of these permissions for my example here will be applied on staff table. Okay, so this will be applied on what? On one table only, just to make things easy to understand. Now, I have the admin. Then I have, I will say, okay, Ali, right? Now I will say the following, okay. Delete this one, then let me just, okay. Now the admin will give Ali what? The admin will give Ali the permission to do the following. Okay, let me just go for 9. Okay. The permissions to do the following. For now, I will give him the permissions to select. On what? On staff table. On staff table. So what I will do right now, each code that I will go to execute, I will go to this authorization graph. See the sequence of what? Of authorization. Clear till now? Any question? Any question till now? Okay. Next, when I go for the grant command, I can grant on the column level. Sorry, I can grant on the table level, and also I can give permission on what? On the column level. Like in our example now, what I want to do, I want to grant update for salary and position on staff to Ali. That means I will allow him to select, to view all the data. What if you want to do update, only he was allowed to update salary and position. That's all. So let me highlight the code, and now I am the administrator. So I'm executing the code as administrator. So highlight, execute. Notice your command completed successfully. Now I will depend heavily on what? On the object view, more than the user view. Okay. So I will go for tables once again. Right click, Properties, once again, permissions. Now notice here, the same thing we have Ali. Ali can do what? Ali can select and update. Now notice when you go for update, it show me here what? This is small square. This indicates that not all the columns, okay, is updatable in my staff table. Once again, if I have a check, this means that all the columns here can be viewed, that can be selected. When I go for update, we have a square, right? Square means not all the columns in the staff table are updatable. So to check which columns I can update, you go for the column permission here. So when I click on this one here, it will show me what? Which information I can, or which columns I can update. So notice here we have the principal as Ali, the grantor is DBO, database owner, the table name is staff, and the permission is update. So what he can do update, or what he can update position and salary only. Position and salary only. Clear? Any question till now? Okay. To give you an example for this, I will go here right now as Ali. Okay. Then I will go to the table staff. Let me just go for edit. Now I can review all the time items. Okay. Can I update the salary? Let's see. I want to make this one from 5,000 to make it, let's say, 4,000. Will you update? Yes. I just simply update the value. Can I update the last name? If I want to ask, can I update the last name?
No.
No, right? Because you said, okay, I will say, suppose let's say ABC, for example. Notice here directly it says, sorry, you don't have the permission to update what this column. The update permission was denied on the column name and so on. Okay, clear? Any question till now? So here what we have is what we have. Let me just remember. Okay. We have update for salary and position. Who grant these permissions? It is the administrator. So I will go here to my diagram. Then I will go to update this one. So I will say, comma, then update. Let me just expand this one, and so on. So now Ali can do what? Can select whole columns and update only salary and position on what? On staff table. On staff table. Clear? Any question till now? Okay, so far so good. Now, what I will do next is the following. Just now I'm repeating the process. I want the admin to grant Mary, select, insert, and update permissions. At the same time, I want to allow Mary to give these permissions to others. Now for Ali, referring to the statements that we have, he can give these permissions to other people. While Mary, the admin here, decided that, okay, I want to give these permissions, which is select, insert, and update on staff to Mary. At the same time, I want to allow Mary to what? To give these permissions to other users. Okay? To use that, we use the command with the grant option. With the grant option, okay? So the same thing, I am the administrator. It is very important to notice which code you are using which user. So highlight, execute. Now I'll go to view the object view once again. So I'll go for the staff, right click, properties, then go for permissions. Notice here now, it is not there. Now, when it is not there, this means that this window was opened already, okay, earlier, so it will not show the latest update. Simply what you have to do is just close, then open it once again. So I'll go here for permissions. 1 minute. Oh, okay, because I said okay, it was open. Let's highlight this one, then execute. Okay, because when I just say okay, it was not, this permission was not there, so when I open the window, it was not saved. Okay, for now, let me just open it once again. Right click, properties, then I'll go for permissions. Why it is not giving me Mary? One minute, please. Let me just refresh. Okay. Sorry. What was doing here? What was the mistake? Why am I not able to see the Mary permissions? Why I was not able to see Mary permissions when I click for properties and permissions?
It's the Ali table.
Because Ali simply he can't view this, right? He's not the administrator. So I'm trying to view the table from Ali view, right? I try to view the staff table from Ali view. For sure, I will not get the information related to Mary, right? So we need to be aware for this one. So I'll go here for Dream Home now, okay? As the administrator, not as Ali. Then I'll go for the staff, right click, properties, then I'll go for permissions, and here, as you can see, so we have Ali, then we have now Mary, and Mary now notice here, she has what? She has 3 permissions, which is insert, update, and delete. And notice here with the grant. With the grant means what? Means now Mary can give these permissions to other users. Okay? With the grant means Mary can give these permissions to other users, as I'll go to show you right now in the next example. So I will say here select insert update. So I'll copy this one. Okay. Then I'll go for my diagram and I will say the following. I will have an actor. Okay, this will be called Mary. So here I will say then I will add the text here, and then I'll say we have select insert update, or it's okay, select insert update. So now the administrator give what? He give these permissions to whom? To Mary. Clear? Any question till now? I think now the concept is clear. What we are doing now is clear. It's not really that hard. Okay. Now Mary want to give these permissions to Bob. So that means I need to log in as Mary, then to execute this code as Mary. Now there is other ways to do that is by going here, right click, and I can change the connection. Where is it? Connection here. I can change the connection. So in this case, rather I will have Abdullah, I will go for the other user. Okay, this is one way. The other way, I can use a command called execute as a SQL command. But for now, I'm not using these commands because later it will cause you problems, especially for the first time. So after you are familiar with these concepts, permissions, okay, you can use execute as. Otherwise, if you forget to revoke, okay, or what you call it as revert for the execute as a spec user, you will have some issues or some problems. Okay, so usually for the first time, I don't recommend to use execute as the specific user and so on. Just if you want to go to use Mary, what to do? Go to login as Mary, create a new SQL sheet, then copy and paste the code, then execute the code. So I will go now to connect to database engineer. So I will go for then 1. And I will go to copy this code here. And then now copy this one here, then go for new query. Okay, sorry, this query must be from Mary, right? So just I will go here to Dream Home database, then I will say a new query. So now notice Mary is the person who can execute the following commands. So I'll say grant, select, insert on staff to Bob with the grant option. So highlight, execute. Notice here command completed successfully. Okay, and that means when I go here to my table once again under the administrator here, so I will go for staff table. Okay, so when I click on permissions, notice the following. First of all, okay, we have now Ali, right? Then we have Bob, then we have Mary. Now notice when I go for Bob, who give him the permissions? It is not DBO. It is Mary. Okay, so Mary give these permissions to Bob. It is not database administrator. It's not the database administrator. So therefore, when I go here, now I will have, let's say, Mary and Bob. So let me just go to copy this one here. And let's assume I want to also give these permissions to Bob. Not all the permissions, at least I want to go for what was the permissions? It was select and insert. Okay, clear till now? Any question? Any question till now? Will service will be interpreted by the permission? Can you make your question more clear? Or can you give me an example? If SP want to delete, but the user don't have the permission. Yes, you will not be able to delete. You will not be able to delete. In reality, there is one discussion. I will go to highlight, okay, on this topic, which is if I give you the permissions to execute a stored procedure, can the stored procedure select, insert, and update and delete? Okay. The answer will be a little bit tricky, but later I'll go to give you an example for that. Okay. So if I have the store procedure and I want to delete some information without having the permission, the user don't have permission, can I do that? In SQL Server, I can say yes. Okay, but I will need to have more discussion. Later, I'll give an example for selecting information. Like, okay, maybe the user have, let's say, 4 tables he can access directly, but 1 table he can't access directly. So in this case, can he use that permission to get the information? I'll go to give you an example to highlight this concept, this concept. Okay, so I'll go to visit this question once again with an example, So, okay. So we have admin, Ali, now, okay. Now, if I want to ask, can Bob give these permissions back to Mary?
Yes.
The answer is yes, he can do that.
But Mary already have this access, right?
Yes, but it will be there, he can do that. But even though, we'll see later if I revoke the permissions, that means the admin decides to take the permissions back. Okay, so we'll see what will happen later. But for now, can Bob give these permissions back to Mary? The answer is yes. So I can say here, okay. The answer is yes. Okay, clear? So let me show you what I mean by that. I know maybe logically it looks strange because you're saying, okay, since Mary give Bob the permissions, so why Bob will go to give permissions back to Mary? SQL Server will allow that. But we'll see later when I go to revoke the permissions, what will happen. So here, I will go to log in as Bob. Then I will go to grant back the information, okay, to Mary. So the same statement here, just I change the user. The grantor, okay, who wants to give permissions to whom, okay. So in this case, I'll copy this one. Then here I will go to connect as Bob. So say here we have Bob, then we have one. Then we go to create a new query. Oh, sorry, dream home. Excuse me. So command completed successfully. Now notice here if I go for the staff table from the object view, properties, notice how many users can access to my table. There are Ali, Bob, and Mary. Now Mary, what happens in the table? First, we have the permission which is called insert, okay, which is given by DBO, database owner. Then we have another insert permission given by whom? By Bob. Given by whom? By Bob. Okay. Clear? Any question? Any question till now? So good. So far, so good. Now, next. Bob will go to give these permissions to Sam. So let me just copy this one. So a grant select insert on staff to Sam. So what happens here? I'll go for Bob and I will give these permissions to Sam. So highlight, execute. Command completed successfully. Now if I go for the object view once again, properties. Then I go for permissions. Notice here I will have how many persons can access to the staff table till now? 4 persons plus the admin. Okay, 4 persons or 4 users plus the admin. Additionally, each one of these, I will have what the persons who are giving him, or who will give him the permissions and so on. Clear? So I will go here and let me update what? This one here. So I will say we have Sam and Sam will have what? Will have the permissions. Which is select and insert, right? Now also, what I want to do here, I want to allow the admin to give the permissions to Sam, which is select, insert and update. Only stuff to Sam. So now also the administrator give these permissions directly to whom? To Sam. So I just will highlight this one. I am the administrator, so I'll go to what? To execute. Command completed successfully. Okay. Now when I go here to my diagram, I will go to just draw a line between the admin and the permissions that he have is what? It is select, insert and update. So let's check this one once again. Properties, now when I go for permissions, if I go for Sam, now Sam is taking the permission from whom? From Bob and DVO, from Bob and DVO. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Any question about the grant statements? Now attention please. After we grant all these permissions, now let's assume the following. Let's assume the administrator decided to revoke, select and insert permissions. Revoke means what? Revoke means remove the permission. Okay. Now I'll give you like 5 minutes and I want from you to write down here, okay? Write down here what the permissions remains for each of these users, okay? What the permissions remains for Mary, for Bob, for Sam, and for Ali, in case of what? In case that the admin decided to revoke the two permissions. The two permissions here, they are what? They are select and insert. So I will say,
Hi, sir, I have a question.
yes.
Can you go back to the diagram?
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so now Mary give Bob select and insert, correct?
That's right.
And Bob will give back Mary select and insert. So can Bob give Mary delete if Bob doesn't have delete?
No, if you don't have the permission, you can't give it.
Okay, so once Bob gives select and insert to Mary, does Bob still have, or you need to revoke?
This is the thing. This is why I'm asking the question. Because when Bob give Mary the permission, okay, from hierarchical point of view, this is strange, right? That means the question will be why SQL Server allow that? For them, they say, okay, I will not stop it. But later when I go for revoke, this will be answering the question. That means your question will be answered now. That means I do revoke, okay, what are the remaining permissions for Mary, Bob, Sam, and Ali? So I will give you like around maybe 5 minutes. So please, each one of you just try to write down here. Mary, for example, she will have these permissions. Bob, these permissions. Sam, these permissions. And Ali, these permissions. Okay, so I'll give you like 5 minutes. And here I want to revoke, select, and insert permissions from whom? From Mary. So the admin will revoke these permissions from whom? From Mary. So let me just write the whole query just to make it more clear for your analysis. Okay, where is it? Okay, like just I'll go here, copy, then I'll go for so now 5 minutes. Give me the answer, then we will discuss about the answer and execute the code and see what is the result. Okay, so let's check the answers. Mary, she will have an update. Right, okay, Mary 3 permissions, Bob 0. Sam 3 permissions, Ali is 1, okay. Mary, she will have an update. Bob, he will not have any permission. Sam will have select insert update. And Ali will have select and update. Mary update, none, and so on. That's correct. All the answers here are correct. When I revoke the permissions from Mary, which is select and insert, what happens? For Mary, only update will remain, okay? For Bob, simply he will not have any permissions. Why? Because since Mary give the permissions to Mary, so on the hierarchy, all of these permissions supposed to be revoked. That means Mary give these permissions to Bob, so it will be revoked, and Bob give these permissions to Sam, also will be revoked. Okay, let me show you here. Notice, for example, we go one by one. If I go for Ali, all the grantors are DBO, database administrator. So in this case, it will not be affected. Okay. When I go for Bob, Bob he getting these permissions from Mary. So these two permissions will be revoked. Okay. Mary, she get this permission from Bob since it is on the hierarchy, so it will be revoked. And also she get this permission from DBO. So update will remain. Update will remain. Okay. So Bob will not have any permission after we revoke the permissions. Okay. Sam, he have permission from Bob and DBO. The permission from Bob will be revoked. The only remaining one will be from what? From DBO. From DBO. Okay. So let me execute the command and see how this works. By the way, if you try to cascade this one or try to revoke without cascade, highlight execute, what will happen here? You need to add cascade. Why? Because to revoke or deny grantable privileges is to add a cascade. Because if I said that the user can give these permissions to other, okay, I must cascade because I want to remove all the granted permissions on the whole hierarchy. Okay, so therefore I must add what? Cascade keyword. So highlight, execute. Commands completed successfully. Now when I go for the staff properties, now let's compare the result here with the permissions here. So first of all, Bob is not there. Why? Because he can't access the table anymore. Ali, he will have what? He will have select and update, which is this one, right? Ali will have select and update, which is correct. Mary will have only what? Update permission. There is no other permission. Then Sam will go for what? Will go for select, update, and insert. And all of these, they are formatted from DBO. Clear? Any question? Any question till now? So that's all for today. Next lecture, I will go to discuss about how to create groups. Also, we'll go to visit the example for the stored procedure. If I apply stored procedure, then I give something called execute permission. So what I can do, and so on. Okay.
Hi sir, are you free this
Hi.
week for consultation?
Maybe on Friday or next week.
What
Or this
time?
week. Can we make it next week?
Okay, but actually because I've sent you the assignment related questions through Teams, and you said you're gonna
Okay.
get back. You free this week to do that? I think that
I
will be
will
enough.
try my best because unfortunately I'm having marking for the last 1 month.
Oh, okay.
Because I have like 3 modules, the heavy intake, so I finished the first one, the second one. This is why some of the queries why we didn't reply for it. Let me cheat. Let me see. Just send me another reminder, okay?
Sure,
On
sir.
Teams once again. If I have free time on Friday, I will check it. Otherwise, I will, see it once again on Monday. On Monday.
Because there's
Uh,
a concern about
yes.
the assignment deadline. Will that be revised if
Now we are in which week basically? We are in the ninth week, right?
Yes.
Okay. Later, what do you mean by revise for the submission?
Because the assignment progress is not because of that query unable to resolve. It's stuck at just the basic ERD part there. Couldn't progress.
Okay. No worries, no worries. In this case, let me just check it either try my best on Friday or Monday max, and then we can check for that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
That's good. That's good.
Sir, I think you haven't give us the due date for the assignment, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, not yet. Usually I will be a little bit flexible for the assignment, let's say due date in general. And this is why usually I don't give it for the first time. So later I will see what, okay, what is your progress? Okay, what you have done in the assignment and so on, then we can decide. Especially that your intake is a little bit small, so I can be a little bit flexible on the due date. But later I will check and I will inform you about the official due date for the assignment submission.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome.
And
I know that because, yes.
Yeah, I've also sent you the some questions on the assignment. I think I will just remind you by resend again so that
Okay,
you
okay.
can check it
Yes,
again.
please. Okay,
Okay, thank you, sir.
that's okay. That's okay. Most welcome. Okay, Muhammad says I can't update attendance. Okay. Usually, how many weeks we have? Now I don't know. How many weeks we have in this for this in for this intake? 14, right? I guess it is 14. How many weeks we have?
Yes, it's 14, sir.
14. Our exam is
But
November.
that if you don't count the holiday. If you count the holiday, it's 15. Like the
Okay.
mid-sem holiday last week. If you count it, then it's 15. If you don't count it, then it's 14.
Okay. Usually, I will ask you to submit on. Yes, yes. Oh, it's okay. That's right. So usually, I will ask the students to submit on week 14. That means the last week usually, because your cohort is like small, so therefore I can manage it usually easily. Okay. But later I will also confirm all the date, and maybe we can discuss about it by next week. Okay, so we can discuss about the due date and so on. Because also you have the test will be before the examination. Because we have test and we have the assignment. Okay, so in this case you will have this one. Okay. Sorry, because you have test and also the assignment, so the test will be what will be before the semester. So later I will check the dates once again, then we will discuss about assignment submission. If you didn't work till now with the assignment, make sure that you start because you have a lot of things to do. Okay. Muhammad, Osama. Okay, is there anyone else for the attendance? Okay, Muhammad Noor. Okay. I will upload. I will upload usually all the codes. Yes. Usually upload all. Usually, sometimes I will be late because I want the students at least to do their work. But later, usually I upload all the codes that I have used in the class, so it will help the students, to follow up with all the case scenarios and so on. Okay. So anyone whose attendance is not updated till now? Okay, so that's all for today. And
Thank you, sir.
okay, most welcome, most welcome. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Assalamu alaikum.